Okay, at any rate, we're gonna start looking at our sprites. Now, I already went through some of this with the online kids earlier this week because we figured that this was the one that they were gonna need the most help on. Okay, so we spent some time together on this one. There we go. So, make this a little bit bigger for you guys to see. So we use sprites so that we can take one particular image and we can describe many different things about it without having to use entirely new variables. We're just going to set up specific things about that particular image. Okay, so to do that, we use something called dot notation, where we use the name of that sprite and we put a dot and then we put the property that we want to define about it. The property is any sort of characteristic of the sprite, such as the location or the appearance. And the sprite is like characters that we put on the screen. Like, hey, I can put a little green alien moving around. I could put a sun. I could put a ball. Okay? And we're able to control its location, its movement. We can change the way that it looks. So now we are able to draw sprites, which will draw everything that has been defined as a sprite before it. And we can set location, X and Y, the width and the height of it, and we can set some specific properties. So, if you take a look at this, and I've been doing some playing around with this. Actually, let me just go back to the beginning. Start over. I'm going to show it this way. So if you look at this, you can see that we have a variable that's set up, and it's set for a specific location. And then we set a particular animation for that variable to be a particular drawing. It says set animation. Now you'll notice over here that on the left-hand side you see a code tab, and that shows the code here. If I click over to animation, it's a whole new world. Okay? It really is. Here we can use the animations that they have already set up, or we can come down here and we can say new animation. And there's a whole lot of set animations that we could choose from. We can edit those animations, we put our own name to it, we can upload something that we find an image on the internet, or we can completely draw our own. Okay, but even these we can actually edit in some way. We don't need to yet. Okay, so when I run this, you're going to see in one location an apple, and in another location a carrot. They're at the same Y location, 200, but different X locations. So one is going to be on the left, one of them is on the right. So I get apple and a carrot. Now what happens if I change this variable name? Instead of vegetable, I just call it fruit 2. Will it change what image shows on the right? No whatsoever. Just because I changed the name, it didn't change what was in it. Now it just changed the name of the container. If I chose a different animation, then it will show that different animation. So now we have 2 apples. What happens if I take out this set animation and I just set up bar fruit and bar fruit 2, and I set the animation for fruit 2? What do you think is going to happen? Make a guess.
It's gonna change what it looks like. But
In what way? What's gonna show on the screen?
It's gonna change what it, like, on the screen over there. It's gonna change it to a. It's gonna, if you change the animation.
How many sprites is it gonna show me?
2.
Okay. What are those sprites gonna look like? An apple and a square. In that order?
No, a square, not.
You think a square, then an apple? Because I didn't set the image, I didn't set the animation for the first sprite, it just puts a square in as a holding thing. It's just like temporary placeholder. And if we did it the other way around, that if I said, well, hey, fruit is apple, and we don't set anything for fruit too, we'd have apple then square. Okay, so without setting the animation, this is the default that it puts in as a placeholder, but you probably want to set what the animation, what that image actually is. Okay, so let's take a look at this video. It says we need to consider what's a sprite, what are properties, and what problem do sprites actually solve for us.
If you want to animate a single shape in GameLab, you can quickly end up with a lot of variables to manage. You'll need one to store the shape's X position, one to store the Y position, one for width, one for height, and as you add fills, strokes, and other characteristics, you'll need even more variables. If you want to animate additional shapes, you'll need to create a whole other set of variables. All this can quickly lead to problems with organization and clarity in your code. So what's an elegant and manageable way to keep track of all these variables? The solution is to start animating with sprites. Think of a sprite like a character that lives inside your animations. At first, a sprite will pretty much just be a rectangle. But the beauty of a sprite is what it has going on behind the scenes. When you make a sprite, it comes with properties, which are variables that store the characteristics of a sprite. Properties describe things like where the sprite's located on the screen, what it looks like, and what color it is. To create a new sprite, use the create sprite command. You can assign your sprite a label just like you would a variable. This code is creating a new sprite and giving it the label MySprite, but you can label it anything you'd like. Just like shapes, sprites need to be drawn to the screen. Use the draw sprites command to see your sprite appear in the display area. You can control a sprite's properties in your program by using dot notation. First, connect the label of the sprite to the label of the property with a dot. Now you can use this just like a variable. So for example, MySprite.x gets 200 will update the sprite's X location to 200, and MySprite.width gets 50 will update the sprite's width to 50. The next time you call draw sprites, these new property values will be used to draw the sprite. Sprites can have tons of properties. As you get familiar with them, they'll give you powerful controls over what your sprites look like and can do.
Okay, so let's put that into action. I'm going to go back. Start this over. Now it says creating sprites. Okay, using this command var sprite equals create sprite, this creates a new sprite and assigns it to a variable. But you want to change the name sprite to something more meaningful. Drawing the sprites to actually have it appear on the screen, we need to use this draw sprites command, and you need to do that when you have set everything up and you're ready for it to draw. If you put it too soon, then it's not going to draw the stuff that's behind it. So they ask us to add a sprite underneath this comment creating sprites. Comments are just little tags, little like sticky notes to yourself to remind you what different sections of code are. They're very helpful for you and for other people. So let's call this first sprite, or whatever name you can think of. Now if you don't have these numbers behind 200, 200, you saw from the video it ends up at 0, 0. That's where it starts. In this case, it moves it to the middle of the screen and draws it there. Okay, underneath the drawing command, I need to go back to world and drag over the draw sprites. Now all that's going to do is create, right now, just a square. When I run it, I just have a square in the middle of the screen. But every time we want to have a new image in there that we want to manipulate, we have to put in this var sprite and name it with a good name that is meaningful for that particular sprite. And put this draw sprites at the end. Da-da-da. Okay, so this program is supposed to create two sprites, one on the left and one on the right. Why is it not doing one on the left and one on the right? Because there's not what?
Another draw sprite.
We don't need another draw sprite, it's just in the wrong order. We don't need to add anything, we just need to rearrange.
Two draw sprite.
If we put the draw sprites underneath everything, and we go reset run, now we get both. Because what you said was, okay, I've created a sprite, draw it, now I create another sprite. But you didn't draw it. You were drawing the sprites too soon. Da-da-da. Okay, so this particular program is supposed to draw 4 sprites to the screen, and each of them is supposed to have a different animation. Okay, right now if I run it, I have 4 sprites, but only one of them has animation because we have this set animation line on line 5 for our bottom right sprite. Okay, we need to do the set animation for our other 3 sprites. So I need to drag those over. Then I need to change the name. Rather than just sprite, I need to use the variable names that they gave. So I'm going to copy that and paste it. Copy that and paste it. Copy that and paste it. So now we're setting the sprite, we have the correct names, now we need to set the animations. So let's look and see what kind of stuff. They've already set up some easy ones for us, so we could go with alien, bunny, flybot, plain red 1. We could go in and look at others, we could modify. Right now, I wouldn't spend the time doing it. Like, I'm not going to be upset if you do that, but it's not necessary. I do have bunny, flybot, and plain red that haven't been used yet. So I'm going to come over to here. You'll also see that, the ones that are loaded into the particular code and already are showing up in the animation tab, you'll see a list available right here. Okay, alien was already that bottom right one. I'm going to use bunny, and the second one flybot, and the third one plain red, so that we get 4 different sprites. And when I run, you can see the 4 different options that they already preloaded for us. Nice and easy. Any questions so far that I can help with?
Wait, did you add the, did you add these or?
I added sprite set animation. So yeah, that sprite set animation, yep. So now you need to copy that into where the sprite is. You got it. Perfect. And then do that for each of those. Doing well. How you doing, Layla? You're already waiting for the next thing? This stuff is kind of like they just grind through, and then when you're allowed some free choice, it's like, what do I do now? It's like when we're doing stuff in first grade in middle school engineering, they're like, well, it's easy when you have something to copy. All you do is you copy it. When you have to come up with the idea on your own, you're like, what do I do? Okay. Let's say there. Okay. All you have to do in this case is change it to a different one. Change that to a different one on the list. If you want to change it to a different one, you can. But the important thing here is just that we know that, hey, I know how to set an animation, I know how to change the sprite name, and how to change the animation that I'm setting it to. That's the point of this level. Okay, so now we're on to the next video. It says, what are the steps to adding an image to a sprite? And what are different ways to get an image?
Hi, I'm Aston Motes, and I was the first software engineer hired at Dropbox. I also work with an organization called DevColor. DevColor is a nonprofit that advances the careers of Black software engineers. Sprites make it much easier to organize your code, but visually, they're still just rectangles. To make our creations come to life, we'll want to add images to our sprites. We'll start with a simple program you've seen before that creates a single rectangular sprite. Before we can turn this rectangle into something more fun, we need to tell GameLab about the image we want to use. All images and drawings you add to your project are created and managed in the Animation tab. To switch back and forth between your code and the animations, use a toggle in the upper left corner. To add a new animation, click the plus sign. This will open a library of images that are already built into GameLab. From the library, you can browse the categories to find what you're looking for. Once you've selected an image, it'll be added to your project and shown on the left. If you like, you can also change the name of your image. So, here we've added an image in the Animation tab, and we have code that creates a basic sprite. Now we'll need to put those two together and tell the computer that we want this particular sprite. We'll use the set animation block to do this. First, we'll use the name of our sprite and the name of the image we selected in the Animation tab. Now when we run our program, the sprite will be drawn with the image we selected. All of the sprite's properties can still be modified as usual to do things like moving across the screen. You're not limited to the images that come built into GameLab. You can also choose to upload an image from your computer or draw something yourself. In fact, you can edit any image in the Animation tab using the pixel editor. Using the different commands in the pixel editor, you can easily draw, erase, or modify images. To adjust the dimensions of an image, just make changes in the menu on the right side. It's also just one click to flip your image to face the opposite direction. If you like an image you've made but want to make some changes, just make a copy. There are lots of helpful little tools in the pixel editor. Play around with them on your own and see what they do. Back in your code, the drop-down of animations makes it easy to pick which animation your sprite should use until you find the perfect look. Adding images or your own drawings to sprites lets you unleash your creativity and make your programs really your own. Let's get to it.
Okay, so they showed you a lot all at once. You don't have to remember all of that right away. We will be doing several different lessons that walk you through a lot of the stuff that he showed in there. It just shows how we can make those changes. Okay, so we're going to click on continue. Now we're going to debug some of these sprites to find out what's going wrong. Okay, I'm we're gonna start this over so that it matches yours. So let's run and see what's happening. It's supposed to show up like this, where we have the soda and the ice cream, and behind it, that are behind the words get ready. But in this case, I see an ice cream on the left, which is not where it's supposed to be, and I see get ready, but it's behind this. So what's happening here? Let's take a look. First off, it says, hey, print the message, then set up the drink, and then the dessert. And then it says draw sprites. Now remember, this is like wallpaper. What needs to come first? Should the text show first? Or should we have the drink and dessert first? What should be on the bottom layer? Yeah, the dessert and the drink. So we have to move this message to after the dessert and the drink. And if we do that, it shows up front, which is what we want it to be. Now, why is it that our soda is not showing up right?
Because it's a different
What was that?
name.
Well, I see drink, drink, soda, and then I see dessert, drink, ice cream. Does this set animation match this variable? It doesn't. Let's switch that one to dessert. And we're going to run it again. And everything shows up exactly the way that it should now. Kind of weird, huh? So we're set. We need drink, drink, dessert, dessert, and then message, message, draw sprites. Anyone need a hand?
So it's drink, dessert.
Yeah. Drink, drink, dessert, dessert, message, message.
Mine's still showing red.
Yours is still showing red. Okay, let's take a look. All it takes is literally one thing to be off. Your message somehow got emptied. Your message should say text get ready. Yeah, that one right there. No. Actually, we're this here needs to have the location. We need the rest of this. I'm gonna take this one out and I'm gonna put this one back as always. I'm gonna say message, and the location is right in the middle, so 200, 200. Set, look right, run it. And all that happened was somehow that got completed. And so I didn't know where to put it. That's why you got the red. Okay. So we're on to step 9. So I need you guys to figure this out. I'm going to have to make this really tiny just so that we can talk. You're going to look at this on your screen. And we have to match this up, okay? Each of the different sets of code, code 1, 2, 3, and 4, match up with one of the scenes on the left. In each of the codes, we have set up 2 different sprites, but they don't always have the draw sprites in the same location. Remember that as soon as you have draw sprites, it will show all the things that happened before and it doesn't draw anything after it. So where is the one that is complete? That I see both sprites with the correct image. Is that gonna be 1, 2, 3, or 4? That's gonna be number 3. Actually, it kind of depends on what it looks like on yours, I guess. In my case, I don't get a chance to redo it. Okay. This is where you have the draw sprites at the bottom. Okay. This one is if I have the draw sprites after setting up the dog in its entirety. This one here is where we have draw sprites just after we set up the sprite for the dog, but we don't get the animation. And this one draws the sprites even before we set any sprites. So that's all you get is a blue background. So match those up accordingly. It's all about where it says draw sprites is the main difference. What's your question, Michael? You have no other homework to do?
No, I just completed this.
Okay. You may. Thank you. Now remember, the one that has both images has draw sprites at the very bottom. The one that just shows the image of the dog has draw sprites after we have set up the sprite for the dog and set the animation for it. The one that just shows the square has draw sprites right after we just set up the variable for the dog, but no animation. And the blank blue background meant I drew sprites before I even set up any sprites. All the setup for the sprites is afterwards.
Does it tell us that we correct?
It'll tell you if you got it right or wrong, yes. Here's your correct answers right here. A little bit. Okay, so time to work on these activities. First one is, where are the sprites? The sprites are being created, but we need to change the code to make them appear. So we have sprites 1 through 5 created. The animations for 1 through 5 were set. It says nothing shows up. Why is nothing showing up? What am I missing? What do I need to change? No one knows?
You need to move each of the ones underneath,
You think that makes a difference?
and then you have to add a draw scale.
Okay, what happens if I don't move them and I just say draw sprites? What?
I did it the other way.
I understand. That's going to be a personal preference. Okay? Really, the only thing that was missing was the draw sprites. Some people prefer it to set the sprite animation right underneath creating the sprite. Sometimes people like to set up the containers and then say what's in the containers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Either which way is valid. I don't have a preference. I would just try to stick to doing it one way or the other. I usually find it easier to do it this way because you might set up different sprites at different times. And especially if you have a long list of sprites, you want to know what is attached to what. But the order of this didn't really make a difference as long as it's declared before I set the animation.
Yeah.
Okay, here we need to fix the names of the animations. Okay, so we have, what do we need to fix here? What's going wrong? It doesn't like grass 2. Why?
There's no comments.
I need those quotation marks. And if I do that, oh, it says we don't know what Tyrannosaurus is. Let's see what they're actually called. Tyrannosaurus, ladybug, sun, grass 1, grass 2, grass 4. What? So why does it not like Tyrannosaurus? Tyrannosaurus should have 2 N's, and that's what it has here. Okay. So that one's fine, that one's fine. Sun has a capital S. We need to change that sun to capital S-U-N.
Right.
There was just grass. There's grass 1, grass 2, grass 4. So I see grass 1, grass 2. This isn't grass 3. This is supposed to be grass 4. And now we can run it. And it shows up the way it's supposed to. So in this case, it was just a matter of checking for the correct number, the correct capital or lowercase, looking for the correct spelling, and we're all set. Everything shows up. And let's fix the sprite name so that all 3 cherries appear. Okay, I see sprite, 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 cherry, cherry, cherry. What's going on? What would you change the name to? Yeah, that's probably gonna work out a whole lot better. Sprite 1, Sprite 2, Sprite 3, because all you did was you took that container and you moved it 3 times. Or 2 times, I guess, afterwards.
I just put them in order.
You changed the order and that made a difference for you? Did you just try to drag this up here? I think this is the better way to do it. So now you get all 3. But Layla says, let's try this over. She said all she did was she moved it like this. And it did the same thing. I can see either of them working. Either which way would work. Okay, now we need to change the sprite order so we can see the ladybug and see the snail. What's happening in this case is the other thing that's supposed to be behind them shows up in front. So right now, the snail and the ladybug are kind of hidden behind the plants. Okay, so all we have to do is change the order. We want the cactus to be behind, so we want that to show up first. And we need the grass behind, so we need that to show up first. So we just change the order of those. And I can set the animation, I could drag those up, or I could leave them where they're at. But as long as I declare them in this particular order, we're good. You just have to make sure that the cactus appears before the snail and both of the grass appears before the ladybug.
Both of them or just one?
I did both of them, just because I wanted it in front of both of the grass. That crab is always so cool. He's one of my favorites. Good. You guys are catching on quick. Okay. Da-da-da. So now the fish scene. It says we started you off with 3 different fish sprites. There's a fish, blue fish, and green fish. It says customize the sprites to make a fun looking scene. So what else can we add to the scene?
Crab.
A crab. What else? What else can we add? What was that?
Background.
A background? Yeah. Let's go with a background color. What color do we want to make it?
I cannot control my
Blue.
You think it is blue? Let's see what happens. Well, I'm afraid the blue fish might go away. Oh no, not bad. Not bad. Do you have any bubble animations? I don't know.
I just drew a bunch of ellipses on it.
There's a bubbly.
I
Yeah,
just
you
put a
definitely could.
I put a bunch
You
of.
know, another thing that Michael says that he added was he just took and drew some different ellipses on there. You know, different sizes, different locations. What color did you make them? Did you like a fill white?
Yeah. I did. And then I made a blue background. Or like a light blue. A light blue is better.
Oh, that's not quite what I wanted. This is what I meant. Sometimes you do things backwards in your head. That's what I want. Okay. $50. So there's some little bubbles. So yeah, so you can add some other sprites, you could add a background, you could add some shapes. You could add a different stroke color that, hey, I'm going to use green on the outside of my bubbles. See it? I don't know. Barely. Just a little bit of play. And I don't feel like we need to do the next one. It's combine ideas. It's just, hey, create a scene. We're gonna be doing lots of that.
So we don't have to do that one?
You don't have to do that one. But now, what I want you to do is I want you to create your own sprite. It says go to the animation tab and add at least 2 animations to your project. And in the code tab, create at least 2 sprites in 2 different places on the screen. Assign each sprite a different animation and draw your sprites to the screen. And so you need to do that from the animations. And there are these challenges where you need to upload an image to finish this kite scene and draw your own character. Okay, so I need you to do A and B on the final page, and I need you to go to the animation tab, get the 2 sprites, assign them in the code so that those 2 sprites show up on the screen. And a lot of that is probably going to happen tomorrow. Because our time is pretty much up for the day. It was a fast-moving class.
I agree.